The secret power of not caring about social approval is one of the most liberating forces a person can experience, yet most people will never realize it. From the moment we are born, we are conditioned to seek validation. A child learns that a smile from a parent means they did something right, while a frown means they did something wrong. In school, good grades bring praise, while failure brings shame. Society rewards conformity and punishes deviation, subtly programming us to believe that our worth is measured by how others perceive us. But this belief is a trap. If self-worth is dictated by external validation, then who is really in control of our lives? Us, or the collective opinions of those around us? Most people live as prisoners to social approval without realizing it. They make decisions based on what will impress others, not what aligns with their true desires. They suppress their thoughts, filter their actions, and shape their identities to fit a mold that was never meant for them. And the worst part, they think this is normal. But if there were no fear of judgment, how different would life be? Would the career path change? Would conversations become more honest? Would the way we dress, speak, and act finally reflect who we are rather than what we think others want us to be? The moment people stop caring about social approval is the moment they reclaim their freedom. But to truly break free, it's essential to understand why humans are so addicted to validation in the first place. The need for social approval is not entirely our fault. It's a survival mechanism wired into our biology. In ancient times, being accepted by the tribe meant safety. Rejection meant exile, and exile often meant death. To survive, humans evolved to be hyper-aware of social dynamics, carefully calibrating their actions to avoid disapproval. But the world has changed. Today, being disliked by a few people won't kill anyone. And yet, the brain still processes social disapproval as a threat, triggering the same fear responses that once kept our ancestors alive. That's why public speaking feels terrifying. That's why people hesitate to take risks that might lead to failure. That's why confrontation is avoided, even when standing up for oneself is necessary. But is this fear rational? How often do embarrassing moments live in other people's minds as long as they live in ours? The reality is, most people are too consumed with their own insecurities to care about ours, and yet we let the illusion of their judgment dictate real decisions. But what if, instead of constantly seeking approval, the focus shifted to truth? What if self-worth wasn't measured externally but internally? What if the question changed from will they like me to do I like myself?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The paradox of social approval is that the less a person seeks it, the more they actually receive. The most admired and respected individuals are often those who care the least about fitting in. Authenticity is magnetic. Throughout history, the figures who made the biggest impact were not people pleasers. They were the ones who rejected conventional norms, even when it made them outcasts. Socrates questioned everything, even when it led to his execution. Nietzsche challenged morality, even when it isolated him. Steve Jobs refused to compromise his vision, even when he was doubted. They didn't chase approval, they pursued truth. And because of that, people followed them. The more someone craves validation, the more they repel it. Desperation is unattractive. People can sense when someone is being inauthentic, but when someone stops caring and fully embraces who they are, they naturally attract respect. Because deep down, everyone craves authenticity. Living with the courage to be disliked is a radical shift. It means prioritizing inner alignment over external validation. It means speaking honestly, even if others disagree. It means moving forward without waiting for permission. Some people will disapprove. That's inevitable. But what is gained in self-respect, confidence, and freedom is far greater than what is lost. Because real freedom isn't about avoiding judgment, it's about being unaffected by it. And that is the secret power of not caring about social approval. The most fascinating part of not caring about social approval is how it reshapes everything: confidence, relationships, ambition, even the way the world reacts to you. Most people assume that if they stop seeking validation, they'll become outcasts, but the exact opposite happens. The moment you stop chasing approval, people start respecting you more. Why? Because confidence is rare and authenticity is powerful. When someone speaks their mind without hesitation, others listen. When someone moves through life without constantly adjusting themselves to fit in, they become magnetic. But most people never experience this because they're too afraid to test it. They cling to approval like a life raft, believing that without it, they'll sink. But what they don't realize is that constantly seeking validation is what's actually drowning them. The energy spent worrying about how others perceive them could be used to build something: real skills, knowledge, self-respect. Instead, they waste it filtering their words, second-guessing their actions, and molding themselves into something they think will be acceptable. But what exactly are they trying to be accepted by? A society that is constantly shifting its standards. A group of people who are just as insecure as they are. The fear of judgment is nothing more than a mental cage, and the door has been open the entire time. The biggest irony is that most people are too busy worrying about themselves to judge others as much as we think they do. Everyone is trapped in their own world, replaying their own awkward moments, overanalyzing their own mistakes. The mind tricks people into believing they're under constant scrutiny when, in reality, they're barely a passing thought in someone else's day. The truth is, no one cares as much as you think they do. Even if you make a mistake, even if you embarrass yourself, even if you fail publicly, the world moves on. And yet people allow the idea of judgment to dictate their choices as if their entire existence depends on it. Some never start a business because they fear looking like a failure. Some never express their real opinions because they fear being disliked. Some stay in miserable situations because they fear the discomfort of change. But what's the cost of living this way? Regret, wasted potential, a life spent playing a role instead of being real. The moment this illusion is broken, everything changes. The fear of disapproval loses its power. Risks become easier to take. Decisions become clearer. Confidence stops being something you try to project and becomes something you actually feel. The most successful and influential people in the world are not the ones who played it safe, avoided criticism, or tried to please everyone. They're the ones who accepted that being disliked is part of the price of doing anything meaningful. They understood that no matter what they did, someone would disapprove, so instead of trying to avoid judgment, they focused on what actually mattered. That's the difference between leaders and followers. Leaders don't waste time chasing approval. They set their own direction and let the world react however it wants. And ironically, that's exactly what makes people admire them. The paradox is simple: the more you need validation, the less you get it. The less you care, the more people are drawn to you. Because deep down, everyone envies the kind of freedom that comes with being unapologetically real. If you can master this, you become untouchable. Criticism won't shake you. Rejection won't define you. Approval won't control you. And when none of these things have power over you, you can finally start living on your own terms. The fastest way to destroy confidence is to constantly adjust yourself to fit other people's expectations. The more you try to be liked by everyone, the more invisible you become. People who obsess over approval end up being forgettable because they never stand for anything real. They shapeshift depending on who they're around, afraid to express opinions, afraid to take risks, afraid to do anything that might make them stand out in the wrong way. But here's the reality: being liked by everyone is a worthless achievement. It means you've never challenged anything, never taken a strong position, never pushed beyond the boundaries of what's safe. The people who change the world, build great things, and live on their own terms are the ones who accept that not everyone will approve of them. They don't waste energy trying to be universally liked because they understand that real influence comes from being authentic, not agreeable. The irony is that the moment you stop caring about being liked, you become more respected. People might not always agree with you, but they will recognize that you are real. And that alone makes you stand out in a world full of people who are too afraid to be themselves. The biggest reason most people stay trapped in the cycle of seeking approval is because they don't trust themselves. They outsource their confidence to the opinions of others, waiting for validation before they believe in their own abilities. But this is a losing game. If your confidence comes from external approval, then it can be taken away the moment someone disapproves. Real confidence comes from knowing who you are, what you believe in, and what you're capable of, regardless of whether anyone else acknowledges it. The moment you stop waiting for permission to be yourself, everything shifts. You stop hesitating. You stop overthinking. You stop filtering your actions through the imaginary opinions of people who, in reality, don't even care as much as you think they do. And when that happens, you move differently. Your energy changes. People can sense that you are not looking for their approval, and paradoxically, that makes them respect you more. The need for validation is a form of weakness, and people instinctively gravitate toward those who don't operate from a place of neediness. The truth is, most people who judge you are doing it from a place of their own insecurity. They don't actually care about you, they care about what your actions make them feel about themselves. When you succeed, some people will resent it because it reminds them of their own lack of progress. When you break social norms, some will attack you because it threatens their belief system. When you stop caring about approval, some will try to pull you back down because your freedom exposes their own mental prison. None of this has anything to do with you. The opinions of others are just projections of their own fears, limitations, and insecurities. Once you realize this, their judgment becomes irrelevant. You stop reacting. You stop explaining yourself. You stop seeking permission. And when you stop needing anything from anyone, you become untouchable. No insult can shake you. No rejection can break you. No approval can control you. And that is the ultimate power to live so freely, so unapologetically, that the world has no choice but to adjust to you instead of the other way around. The moment you stop seeking approval, life opens up in ways most people will never experience. Decisions become clearer because they're based on what actually matters, not on what will impress others. Confidence stops being something you try to project and becomes something you actually feel because it's no longer dependent on external validation. You start moving differently, speaking differently, existing differently, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you're no longer weighed down by the invisible pressure of constantly managing other people's perceptions of you. And that's when something incredible happens. People start respecting you more. Not because you're chasing their respect, but because they can sense that you don't need it. There's something about a person who is completely comfortable in their own skin that makes them stand out. They don't seek approval. They don't adjust themselves to fit in. They don't hesitate to say what they think. And because of that, they become the kind of person others naturally gravitate toward. The paradox is that the more you need validation, the less you get it. The less you need it, the more people are drawn to you. Because deep down, everyone envies the kind of freedom that comes with being unapologetically real. Most people never break free from the need for approval because they are too afraid of what will happen if they do. They fear rejection, criticism, and the discomfort of standing alone. But the truth is, these things are not nearly as bad as they seem. Rejection doesn't kill you. Criticism doesn't define you. And standing alone isn't nearly as lonely as living a life that isn't truly yours. What's actually painful is spending years trying to please people who don't even think about you as much as you think they do. What's actually unbearable is looking back and realizing that most of your decisions were based on avoiding disapproval rather than pursuing what you actually wanted. The cost of seeking constant validation is a life of hesitation, self-doubt, and regret. And for what? The fleeting approval of people who will forget about you the moment you stop conforming to their expectations. It's not worth it. The only way to win this game is to stop playing it altogether. Once you do, you realize that the world doesn't actually punish those who stop seeking approval, it rewards them. The most respected, admired, and influential people are not the ones who avoided criticism. They are the ones who embraced it, challenged it, and moved forward anyway. They understood that being disliked is part of the price of doing anything meaningful. They accepted that no matter what they did, someone would disapprove, so instead of trying to avoid judgment, they focused on what actually mattered. And that's the difference between those who lead and those who follow. Leaders don't waste time chasing approval. They set their own direction and let the world react however it wants. And ironically, that's exactly what makes people admire them. If you can master this, you become untouchable. Criticism won't shake you. Rejection won't define you. Approval won't control you. And when none of these things have power over you, you can finally start living on your own terms.